Welcome to another episode of the Deep Dive on Till Death Do Us Part.
We are your hosts, Collin Thompson and Sophia McMullen.
Okay, let's dive into Westfield Cemetery in NY.
For you listening, perhaps there's a quiet curiosity you hold for the places in our communities that hold the echoes of the past.
Yeah, we've all seen them, these, silent cities, you could say. And today we're turning our attention to one in particular, Westfield Cemetery, located in Westfield, New York.
Yes, and what makes Westfield Cemetery so compelling isn't just, that it's the place where the stories of the past reside. It really serves as a tangible reflection of the history and the deep-seated heritage of this specific region of New York. People have been interred there for a considerable period, with burials documented all the way back to at least the mid-19th century.
Oh.
Think about the lives lived, the events witnessed, during that span of time.
Absolutely. And its location itself speaks to its historical significance. It's situated right along East Main Street.
Right.
And it falls within the boundaries of the East Main Street Historic District.
Okay.
This district was recognized for its enduring importance and added to the National Register of Historic Places back in 1983.
Okay.
It makes you consider how the physical landscape we inhabit carries these layers of history,
Indeed. Now, one might typically envision a cemetery as a purely tranquil and solemn space, and of course that atmosphere is undoubtedly present at Westfield.
Sure.
However, there's also a rather unexpected and, in a way, life-affirming activity occurring within its grounds. The production of maple syrup by a local individual named Wayne Harrington.
Maple syrup in a cemetery.
Yep. We'll be touching on some insights our producer, Robbins, gathered about this very unusual practice a little later in our discussion.
Okay, that's unexpected.
It certainly prompts a different way of thinking about these spaces.
As we begin to explore the story of Westfield Cemetery, it feels important to acknowledge some of the individuals who have found their final resting place there.
Yeah, definitely.
Their lives, in their own ways, contributed to the tapestry of the history we're examining today.
Precisely. Among those interred, we find some particularly notable figures.
Like who?
Take George W. Patterson, for example. He held significant roles in New York State, lieutenant governor.
Right, lieutenant governor.
And also represented the state in the U.S. Congress.
So a pretty major political figure for the time.
Definitely. It makes you wonder about the political landscape and the key issues he would have been involved in back then.
And then there's Charles Austin Fosdick.
Ah, yes. Although many might know him better by his pen name, Harry Castleman.
Harry Castleman, the author.
That's the one. He was a tremendously popular author, especially known for his captivating adventure novels aimed at young readers. Juvenile fiction, they called it then.
Right.
Yeah.
And interestingly, he chose Westfield as his home for the majority of his adult life.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think of a celebrated storyteller finding inspiration in this very community.
Now, maintaining a historical site like this requires, considerable and ongoing effort.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where the Westfield Cemetery Association plays such a vital role.
Okay, the association.
They were established in 1966. And their purpose is crucial for the long-term well-being of the cemetery.
That makes sense. So what exactly do they do?
Well, their responsibilities encompass pretty much everything involved in the upkeep and the overall preservation of the cemetery grounds.
Like mowing and...
Yeah, the essential work of landscaping, ensuring the grounds are well-maintained, and perhaps most importantly, guaranteeing that it remains a respectful and dignified place, for both visitors and the families of those who are buried there.
It really underscores the active role a community takes in stewarding its history, doesn't it?
It really does, and it truly highlights how the engagement and commitment of the local community are fundamental. You need that to ensure that the cemetery's historical integrity and its sense of place are preserved for future generations. These spaces aren't just frozen in time, they require active care.
And one of the particularly engaging ways the community brings the cemetery's history to life is through the Westfield Historical Cemetery Tour.
I read about that. This isn't just a quiet walk, is it?
No, not at all. They organize guided walking tours where local actors actually embody and portray historical figures buried within the cemetery.
Wow, like living history.
Exactly. It's like stepping into a living history book and hearing firsthand accounts, sort of firsthand, from those who shaped the town's past.
What a unique and impactful way to learn.
And crucially, it also helps raise essential funds for the ongoing maintenance and upkeep of the cemetery.
That's smart, combining history education with practical fundraising.
And for those of you listening with a personal interest in tracing family history or, delving into local lore, it's worth noting there are valuable genealogical resources available too.
Oh, good point.
The Chautauqua County Genealogical Society, for instance, has compiled detailed burial records for Westfield Cemetery, spanning from 1904 to 1918.
That kind of specific data can be incredibly significant for researchers trying to connect with the past.
Definitely.
We also had the opportunity to review a newsletter from the Westfield Cemetery Association, dating from December of last year, 2024.
Ah, okay. What did that tell us?
Well, it provides a really interesting glimpse into the more practical, day-to-day aspects of managing and preserving a historical burial ground. It's a reminder that history requires constant attention.
What stands out is the ongoing interaction with the natural environment. Like, the newsletter highlights the increasing unpredictability of weather patterns.
Yeah. How so?
It notes a late spring followed by alternating periods of intense dryness and then sudden, heavy rainfall.
Oh, wow. That must make groundskeeping tough.
Exactly. This, in turn, leads to very rapid grass growth, presenting a continuous challenge for maintenance. It makes you think about how even seemingly static places are subject to the forces of nature.
Absolutely. And they also express their sincere appreciation to the village for their assistance with leaf collection.
Which I imagine across a large area with mature trees is an enormous undertaking each year.
Huge. And they dedicated significant effort to preparing for their annual memorial ceremony.
Right.
Which unfortunately had to be called off due to a major storm.
Oh. That's a shame, after all that preparation.
It is. However, despite the disappointment of the cancellation, it's reassuring to learn that the cemetery itself was still presented beautifully. And the honor guard made sure to fulfill their important duty by performing at each of the cemeteries anyway.
That speaks volumes about their dedication and respect, doesn't it?
It really does. Another significant aspect of their work is tree maintenance.
Trees in cemeteries are always such a feature.
Mm-hmm. The newsletter mentioned it was a major year for tree removal, which is often necessary, but, a somewhat somber task.
Sure, losing old trees.
But they also emphasized their ongoing commitment to replanting efforts. They've been focusing on sugar maples and dogwoods over the past 15 years.
That's good foresight, preserving the landscape for the future.
Exactly. This long-term vision is crucial.
And demonstrating the remarkable dedication of volunteers within the community, the newsletter detailed some particularly noteworthy stone repair work.
Oh, like headstone repairs.
Yeah, specifically the restoration of the Mary at the Cross monument. It serves as a really poignant example.
What happened to it?
Well, this sandstone monument had tragically lost its arm on multiple occasions due to storm damage.
Oh, no.
And unfortunately, previous attempts at repair that weren't quite adequate, sort of patch jobs maybe.
Oh.
This time, they utilized proper monument-grade adhesive, which hopefully will provide a much more lasting solution for this beautiful yet fragile piece of history.
That's fascinating. It truly underscores the level of meticulous care and specialized knowledge that these historic monuments often require. You can't just use any old glue.
Not at all. The newsletter also introduced a new member of their team, Casey Best.
Okay.
Casey has been focusing on the often physically demanding work of straightening leaning headstones, particularly in the older sections near the Route 20 entrance.
That sounds like heavy work and important for safety too, I imagine.
Definitely. And the sheer scale of the task really becomes apparent when you read that there are literally thousands of monuments within the cemetery.
Thousands.
Wow. The newsletter also made note of volunteers who have been assisting with the process of resetting stones using specialized adhesives.
So it's a real team effort, staff and volunteers working together.
Absolutely. It highlights the collective community effort involved in preserving this significant space.
And it wasn't solely the efforts of adults either.
No.
Following Veterans Day, local school children and dedicated volunteers collaborated to gather all of the American flags that had been placed at grave sites.
Oh, that's nice.
But what was particularly touching was their decision to also extend this gesture of respect to the local fire department by collecting their flags as well.
That shows a broader sense of community honor, doesn't it? Beyond just the veterans.
It really does. Ultimately, the newsletter serves as a powerful reminder of the vital role that, well, financial contributions play.
Right. None of this happens for free.
Exactly. These contributions enable the Westfield Cemetery Association to continue their essential work of maintenance, preservation, and enhancement of the cemetery.
And they are a registered nonprofit organization, specifically with a 501c3 status.
Which means donations are tax deductible?
Right. And they actively encourage anyone interested in supporting their efforts to reach out and subscribe to their newsletter to stay informed.
Which now leads us back to that truly unique and rather unexpected element within these historic grounds we mentioned earlier.
All right.
We're going to shift our focus slightly to explore the intriguing story of maple syrup production actually taking place inside Westfield Cemetery.
It is quite a remarkable juxtaposition, isn't it?
It really is.
The inherent tranquility and solemnity of a burial ground existing alongside the somewhat industrious and certainly life-affirming activity of tapping maple trees to collect their sweet sap.
It certainly makes you pause and reconsider the multiple uses and meanings a piece of land can hold.
So who is doing this?
Our producer, Robbins, had the opportunity to speak with Wayne Harrington, the individual behind this fascinating endeavor.
So Wayne, we're standing here in the middle of Westfield Cemetery, and I've got to say, the last thing I expected to see among these gravestones was a line of sap buckets. How did this all start?
Did you always tap like maple trees like outside of the cemetery, or?
I'm 68 years old, and as far as I know, I've done it for the last 63 years.
Wow.
I remember doing it with my dad.
Really?
Back when you had to carry the sap in buckets.
Oh my goodness.
And my first 2 buckets were the old, you're too young to remember this, but oil used to come in these cans, steel cans.
Okay.
That were about 6 inches in diameter and about 18 inches tall.
Wow.
And he would wash them out real good, put little handles on them made out of electrical wire.
Oh my goodness.
And those were my first buckets for hauling sap in.
Get out.
And in the basement he had a little can, which I still have, and a little natural gas burner.
Okay.
And a milk can.
Okay.
And that was the feed tank. And we would make the syrup that way. And we would make, I don't know, maybe 10 quarts a year. That was it. And then we would take a quart to school and sell it, or, we always had to keep some for us.
Sure.
But I remember one year taking 7 quarts into Mr. Hesslink and getting $7 for the 7 quarts.
Oh my goodness.
And so that was how it all started. And then life goes into other things. And when I hit my teen years, then it was more about school and sports.
Yeah.
And girls.
Of course.
And then probably one of the best things that ever happened to me was on May 26th of 1975. I'm on a motorcycle and a drunk pulled out in front of me.
Oh my goodness.
Busted me up, spent a week in the hospital.
Oh my goodness.
And I was supposed to be at the state track meet for the pole vault.
Whoa.
Never got there.
Yeah.
I had to jump less than 12.9 that year and 10-foot won it.
Wow.
But anyways, I never had a cast of any kind. Shattered a shoulder.
Oh my goodness.
Told me I'd never use my right arm again. Well, don't tell that to the farm boy.
Yeah.
I even had my bike fixed, and I was riding again the 1st of August.
Oh my goodness.
Because of that, I'd had a job lined up, and they decided not to wait. So I ended up in construction.
Okay.
So that's why my life went this direction.
Sure.
And I'm really glad that it did.
Aww.
Now, just to give you a little, because you went, see that steeple over there on that church?
I do?
Okay.
Yes.
And right over there is the Welch's corporate office.
Okay.
Right? I'm hanging in a harness on the hook of that crane 150 feet when I'm watching this Firebird with a T-bar roof letting
goodness.
this girl out to go into Welch's, who has been my wife for 45 years.
Oh my goodness.
So you see, I'm way up there and all that distance. I could have yelled. She would have never heard me. Saw her again 2 years later, and that was the end of that. 2 kids. One's a school teacher in math, works right here in town. The other one's an assistant principal at Pioneer. The one that works at Pioneer always said that she was never going to have kids.
Yeah.
And now she's an assistant principal. Got 800 of the little bastards.
Oh, see?
But anyways,
Divine detours.
when my oldest one was probably 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So we're talking, 86 or so.
Okay.
I started to get the itch because when you're raised on a farm, you never truly step away from it.
Right.
And where we were renting, my new wife and I,
Aw.
they had maple trees all around the yard.
Okay.
And they were larger ones.
Yeah.
And so I set up that little pan and I would boil down like that. Well, then we decided to build a house. And we did it here in the Westfield community. And skip a year, built the house, and the itch got to me again.
Yeah.
And I started all over again with this little pan. And my dad had a larger pan that he hadn't used in 40 years. And believe it or not, it sits above a wood fire, and it was rimmed with wood.
Oh my goodness.
But if you treated it properly,
Yeah.
it wouldn't burn. And I still have both of those pans.
Oh my goodness.
They sit in the trusses in my garage. And then it was in 89. I went out and I bought a used evaporator. It was 14 years old. It was made of English tin.
Okay.
And it already had some leaks in it.
Yeah.
And I used that for a couple of years. And then this guy comes walking in December. He's looking at my evaporator. I'm figuring he's there to buy some syrup. He offered me an outrageous price for my old evaporator. It was totally out of line. And I'm kind of like, it's December and my season will start here in about 7 weeks.
Right.
He goes, I don't care. Well, I made some calls, and a company up in the New England states told me that they could build me a new evaporator in 4 weeks.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And so then it was like, I have all this wood sitting out there. Believe it or not, that was Persian Gulf time. It was cheaper for me to burn oil than it was to burn wood.
Wow.
So I went to an oil-fired unit, which it was a good thing because when I used wood, nobody else would step up and run that evaporator. Because you know, when you're running out of sap, you got to pull some of that fire out.
Okay.
Or you've got to let it die down earlier.
Okay.
Because if there's nothing in your pan, it'll burn your pan.
Okay.
And nobody ever wanted to do that. Well, when I went to the oil, when you hit the switch on that burner, the heat's gone.
Oh yeah. Okay. Like a stove.
And because of that, if I set everything up running,
Yeah.
my wife, my oldest daughter, and my son-in-law will stand there and run that thing even for an hour or two
How cool.
while I can entertain other things.
Do something. Yeah.
Because they know that if they get scared or something goes wrong, they flip that switch and they close that valve and that lady is dead.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
So, and then came the era of what they call reverse osmosis. What it is it acts like the screen door on your house.
Okay.
The air gets through, the mosquito doesn't. It's too big to fit.
Yeah. Okay.
This has membranes that operate anywhere from 300 to 500 pounds to the square inch.
Wow.
And the holes are so small that the water molecule can fit through, but the sugar molecule can't.
Wow.
The time savings is incredible. You run 1,600 gallons because my tanks are 1,600 gallons.
Sure.
that unit turns that 1600 into 400.
Wow.
So now instead of taking 10 hours to boil that tank down, it
Yeah.
takes me 2.5.
Oh my goodness.
And
Game changer.
my burn blows 13 gallons of fuel.
Wow.
And at
That's a lot.
$3.50 to $4 a gallon,
Yeah.
the cost and savings is incredible, to say nothing about the time.
Absolutely.
Her name is Mildred.
Oh,
She is my hired hand.
I love that.
Okay. Now, to this day, nobody wants to run her,
Okay.
and they still will not start my evaporator.
Okay.
Or shut it down. But if I have everything up and running, I can escape. Whether that's to go read a paper, go do other things, you
Yeah.
know, and I don't have to worry about it. We were as high one time a few years back as 3,300 taps.
Holy crap.
One year we topped out at 834 gallons.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not that big anymore because my son-in-law now has teenagers.
Oh geez.
And
Full-time job.
And my daughter, instead of just teaching at school, she's involved in 27 and a half other things.
Yeah. Wow.
So I've lost part of my workforce.
Yeah.
I'm a little one-man shop now, so
Oh.
I only run about 1,500 taps.
Okay. Wow.
Realistically now, my equipment's too big.
Yeah.
Uh,
So how many gallons do you get? Like how many gallons of syrup do you get from the 1,500 taps?
well, it's what's called the rule of 86.
Okay.
Sap is a sweet water,
Yeah.
okay? The sugar is measured in what's called bricks.
Okay.
The rule of 86 is like this. You take 86 and you divide it by the bricks level of the sap.
Okay.
So we'll just use two
Sure.
bricks.
Sure.
86 divided by 2 is 43.
Yep.
It will take 43 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup,
Oh my goodness.
okay?
Wow.
Now, by running it through that concentrator,
Sure.
it will take it up to 8 bricks
Wow.
because it threw all that water away.
Yeah.
So you divide 86 by 8,
Okay.
roughly just under 11.
Yeah.
So now instead of boiling down 43 to get 1, you're boiling down 11 to get 1.
Wow.
So that's where all the savings come in.
Yeah, really.
And I was told at one time that I was only the second one in the county that was doing that. I don't know if I believe that.
So tapping.
But everybody uses concentrators.
Okay. All right. Using the concentrator. Okay.
Everybody does that.
Okay.
You go to Facebook now and you can see where these little backyard syrup makers
Yeah.
are making them out of stuff they get at Home Depot.
Get out.
Well, mine's much more robust
Sophisticated?
than
Okay.
that.
Sure.
My unit weighs 800 pounds, you know,
Goodness.
and that's because it's made out of real steel and real pressure vessels.
Oh
and
my
stuff like
God.
that.
So do you have a separate like building for the condenser or?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a side chute on my garage. The tanks are in the garage, and then you step down 4 steps and you're into the,
Condensing room?
yeah, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
Now all the magic, because like there's a company in town here that has concentrators, but they do it with vacuum, okay?
Okay.
And you can do it. Because, you know, like right here, depending a little bit on air pressure, water will boil at 212,
Yes.
okay? But believe it or not, you put it under 28 inches of mercury vacuum,
Yeah.
it'll boil at 50 degrees.
Oh my goodness.
And so they'll use vacuum. Well, this company used vacuum, and they took a tanker of maple sap, and they ended up with 3 barrels of 66 degree sweet.
Wow.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
Really super sweet.
Yeah.
And they gave me a call and they said, what did we do wrong? And I said, the biggest thing, believe it or not, is you have to have the high heat of the flame
Yeah.
to caramelize all the sugars.
Oh, yeah.
All you did was concentrate the sugar.
Make simple syrup, kind of.
Well, can you do that for us? Well, let me put it this way. For me to do that, we've got to thin it back down to somewhere between 8 and 12 bricks.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do to what you got there.
Yeah.
Well, they held on to it forever. And I kept telling them, I said, here's the issue. A lot of times, some really, really dark syrup, in fact, there goes the current general manager right now,
Okay, now,
and he's always on his bike.
that's awesome.
And anyways, it is a pure maple product.
Yeah.
There's no reason that somebody couldn't take this, because it's basically clear, and add it to some dark syrup
Sure.
and lighten it up.
Yeah.
And yeah, it will, I don't want to use the term dilute, but it might weaken the maple flavor a little bit.
Right. Okay.
But the point is you're adding a pure maple to a pure maple.
Right.
So you are not doing what they call adulterating the product.
Exactly.
But finally, he just told me, now we sold it to somebody, took a major loss on it. And I'm like,
Oh.
whatever.
Yeah. Whatever.
They had like 20 gallons left over. They tossed that my way. And actually, I thinned it down. And it was okay.
Yeah.
But I put it in a barrel and sold it bulk, you know.
Oh, nice.
But if I'd had some really dark stuff,
Yeah. Why
I
not?
would have lightened it up.
Sure.
And then the last part of the process is what's called a filter press. Just think, it's a filter.
Yeah. Okay.
Believe it or not, a lot of times, especially late in the season when the syrup comes off the evaporator, it's pretty dirty,
Okay.
muddy,
Yeah.
cloudy,
Yeah.
something like that.
The stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like a swimming pool, you throw in a food-grade diatomaceous earth, you mix it all up, and you run it through this thing, and it comes out sparkling on the other side.
Oh my goodness.
Now, if you were to tell me that I had to give up every piece of equipment except one
Yeah.
and start over, I give it all away except the filter press.
Really.
That's the key piece of equipment right there.
So now let me ask you this: the diatomaceous earth, is that to kill off like?
Nope,
No.
it doesn't kill anything. It's ground up dirt,
Yeah.
a special dirt,
Yeah. A special dirt.
actually a stone.
Yeah.
But what it does is,
Does it act like
If-
charcoal, like a filter?
well, if you just run the syrup through,
Yeah.
there's these papers in there, and they'll plug up. They'll be like it puts a mud on,
Okay.
a
Yeah.
layer of mud,
Yeah.
and then nothing can get through.
Okay.
Well, with throwing in this diatomaceous earth and stirring it in there, now you've put in billions of pieces of, in essence, I'll use the term sand,
Or like shells. Yeah.
and they make all of these little mountains on that piece of paper,
Okay.
and everything keeps coming, and this mountain turns into this mountain, turns into this one,
Sure,
turns into that
wow.
one, and
That's ingenious.
and I touched your phone,
Oh, that's okay.
and
As long as we're still going. Oh, I think we are. Yeah, we're still going. You're good.
good. I touched the phone. In today's world, that might not have been a good thing.
I'm
you
leaving
know?
that in there, Wayne. You know that, right? I'm going to
Yeah.
leave that in there.
Well, this technology stuff, I don't get much into it, you know. You want me to work on a frequency drive or perhaps a simple PLC, stuff like that.
Well,
It's a different world.
it is a different
You
world, but
ask me to sit down at a computer and type a letter, I don't have a clue.
that's all right.
I use my one at home to
Yeah.
go to Facebook.
Yeah.
The best I can do is look at pictures.
Well, that's all right. There's people who could do it for you. And you know what? We need the analog stuff. Without the analog stuff, you don't even get me started about the analog stuff because
Well, my wife did IT for 40 years.
really, wow.
You think I can get her to touch a computer?
No.
Ain't happening.
Yeah, well, after that long, who wants to? But seriously, so let me ask you this. So what made you decide to, how did tapping in Westfield Cemetery come about? Like, how did that whole thing happen?
When I was coming into Westfield on all of this.
Yeah. So did you lived here at that point?
Yeah, because I built my first house
Yes,
here.
okay.
I live in the second one now. But there was a gentleman up here on a back road. His name was Trump.
Oh my God.
And he had been doing it for uncounted years. And he was really old himself.
And he was doing it in the cemetery?
Not at that time.
Okay.
But he told me he had done the cemetery.
Okay.
So I stepped in there and I could see the old tap holes in there. And we were talking and he goes, I've got 1,000 taps up back on the hill here.
Yeah.
And he goes, you could always go down and talk to the lady. It was a lady at the time. And so I told him, okay, I'll think about it and talk to them down here. And she goes, well, they've been done before.
Whoa.
So she told me what she wanted me to do. And actually it was a barter arrangement.
Yeah.
And so we've been tapping in there ever since. Now, I have seen other cemeteries with buckets hanging in them.
Have you?
Yep.
Where? I want to know.
Ripley, Mayville.
Okay.
And I can't say that I've seen it recently, but I remember in the past.
Really?
I remember up in Mayville, I was tapping some trees on a road up there. It used to belong to my grandfather. And my uncle would tell me that some of those trees had been tapped for over 150 years.
Oh my gosh.
And finally, as of last year, I need one of those.
Is it a generator?
Transformer.
Oh, transformer, yes.
As of last year, I'm finally not tapping any more of them. They've just got so old that the highway department over the years has been taking them down as needed.
Right.
Okay? And there's still a half dozen up there, but you know, it's not something that I'm going to stop at just a half dozen. You know,
Right.
where I go another 3/8 of a mile down the road and I got 400 waiting for me.
Right.
So, and I got a feeling, because I know the highway superintendent up there, I've got a feeling in another couple of years the rest of them will be gone too.
Wow.
So pretty much, and then I had people in Ripley that wanted me to come do theirs.
Yeah.
And so that's when we were hitting the 3,300 taps.
Okay.
And like I said, now we're down to about 1,500. I have to do it myself, which working 6 to 10 works out pretty well.
Yeah, sure.
Uh,
So, did you tap the trees this year? Did we just miss it when we came back, or
No, we tapped.
you did do it this year?
Typically, and this year was not a good year.
Huh.
Typically, it used to be that we'd tap the first week of March and boil till tax day, the 15th of April.
Right. Right.
Well, I'm not going to say the climate has changed, but the season has changed.
Yeah.
And lately, the last 20 years probably, if you're not tapping the 3rd or 4th week of January,
Wow.
you might be foolish because your first runs are happening earlier.
Wow. Okay.
So this year, we tapped the last week of January. And then we got into all that cold,
Yeah. Wow.
which wasn't a problem
Okay.
because when it's that cold, you're not going to grow any bacteria in the holes.
Yeah, right.
Because it's bacteria that closes the hole off.
Got it. Okay.
And it's not a bacteria that's going to hurt anybody.
Right.
Plus, it goes through the whole heating and filtering thing anyways.
Yeah.
By the time it gets to the filter press, the bacteria doesn't exist.
Exactly. Yep.
Plus, when it comes into the building, we run it through ultraviolet lights, which destroys bacteria anyways.
Oh my God! How cool is that?
And then, but anyways, our latest start ever. Our first run was on March 6th.
Oh my goodness.
We had a nice run. 2 or 3 days later, we had a fabulous run.
Okay.
2 or 3 days later, we had another nice run. And then we hit those mid-70s days, those mid-60s nights.
Yep.
The trees said enough.
Oh my goodness.
And
so the trees actually tell you when to stop.
Oh yeah. You know, it's like a computer. It's almost like they're networked together.
Yeah.
Because when one stops,
they all stop.
They all stop.
That's amazing.
And so this year, my season, instead of being 4 to 6 weeks, was 9 days.
Holy crap.
Cleanup still took me as long, though.
Yeah, of course. Oh my goodness.
So now we made some nice stuff. Don't get me wrong. But we didn't really make enough to meet my needs for the year.
Right.
But I'm not one of those that when I have extra, I sell it to New England, bulk.
You just you read my mind. I was going to ask you, do you sell it?
Mine? Well, yeah. That's why we do it.
Well, okay, yeah.
But when I have more than I'm going to need, I hot pack it in stainless steel barrels.
Okay.
And I have a walk-in cooler I shove it into.
Oh my gosh.
It's called Money in the Bank.
Yeah.
So what I had, not a lot, but what I had left over from last year,
yeah,
along with what I made this year, I'll be all right. I'll meet my markets this year.
You don't have a couple extra little small bottles you'd like to sell to me and my colleagues, would you?
Not here, but about 2.5 miles away.
I'll go with you 2.5 miles away. We're dying for it. Everybody's like, dude, because it's like to us, it's one of those things like you just want to have it in your house and say, this came from this very special place, from this very special man. Like none of us could ever forget, especially me, my conversation with you just in the last few days. Like this is an interaction that I will cherish. What a cool story, and what a cool...
Boy, you must really be some kind of sicko then.
Takes one to know one, Wayne. No, I'm just teasing. No, this was just very cool. Like, your story is amazing.
Now, to get back to your cemeteries.
Yes, sorry.
There is a lot of cemeteries around. You drive the countryside. There's a little one there, a little one there.
Oh, yeah.
This and that.
Those are our favorites.
On my grandfather's farm, I never really inquired anything.
Sure.
But not too far from the barn was this little grove of trees, maybe 200 foot square.
Yeah.
And there was several grave markers in there.
Yeah.
Now, I never checked anything out. Sometimes my curiosity, I wonder who's buried there.
Yeah.
And I know I could go there because my cousins own it now, the older generation. But, I think about that sometimes. I'll walk through this cemetery here when I'm collecting.
Yeah.
I have a relationship with some of these stones.
I was going to ask you this. See, you are reading my mind.
It's like, good morning, Nancy. Things like that.
Yeah.
And others, like you'll read a stone and you'll read of somebody that was 2 or 3 years old. And you can tell by the family names that mom, dad, and daughter or something like that. And it's kind of like, well, kind of sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
You develop these things.
Sure.
But some of them, every time I'm in there, I'm speaking to these stones.
Yeah.
And some of them I recognize the names.
Yeah.
You get in there certain times and it's like, there's the military marker.
Yep.
And I'll make a comment about, boy, you ought to see what's going on now in the Middle East, things like that.
Yeah.
You develop the relationship. I don't know how to explain it, but you do.
No, that was one of my questions, because for us, when we go into these places, that's kind of what it's like. It's like, I was trying to explain it in the diner, but we were talking so quietly and talking about everything, but...
You talk quietly?
Well, an Irish whisper, I told you. But that's kind of what is so cool for us, is because when we walk around, and we've seen some of those little plots on a family farm at the edge of the property, and respectfully we're like, can we just come please visit, and you walk around and you develop a sort of reverence, especially when you see and it's a thing that they don't obviously do anymore, but they have the date listed, but they have the year, the age they were, and then the amount of days that they were.
Yeah.
So to have included like the amount of days of the year, we find that interesting because time is precious, and especially when the life expectancy was less, I could see why including the days would have been relevant. It was like an accomplishment or something. And I didn't mean to cut you off. I digress.
Do you have children?
I do not. It just never
Well, let me put it
worked
this
out
way.
that way.
That's fine. Did you ever think about when you had to name a kid that you would that you would go in and walk the stones? Some of those names are lovely.
I know.
And
I know.
You get in there, and once again, you'll walk by, and I'm kind of, boy, I like that name.
Yeah.
Or I like that name. Or,
Yeah.
things like that. And a lot of times, I've had people over the years, well, we haven't decided on any names yet. And I've told them, go walk in the cemetery.
Yeah.
The names are uncounted. And yeah, there's older names, there's newer names. But you'd be surprised at how some of these names just will reach out and grab you.
Yeah.
And now that didn't happen with my two girls, My wife got her way on both of them.
Good for her.
Yeah, okay. But there's another reference about, the cemeteries.
Yeah.
The relationship I have with stones, and then okay, you want to name a child. Don't look in a book. Don't look on the internet.
Exactly.
Just walk around. You'd just be amazed.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you can tell by reading dates and thinking about points in history.
Yeah.
You can imagine that, okay, this is about why, this might be why this one passed on, such and such. So
it's the story. It really is. And I'll tell you one of my favorite names that I just recently saw, and I've never seen a stone quite like this that said this, and it just said Varnished Fox, and it said a soldier of the Revolution.
Yeah.
And I just was like, wow, like it was just very cool. And that name is something, Varnished Fox. It struck me for some reason. I just thought it was incredible.
Well, then that could have been your call if you had ever had a child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It absolutely.
It grabbed you.
It did. It absolutely did.
So
I told my friend, I was telling him about, how I wanted this to become this was before I got a hold of David. And I was like calling everybody I could call to find out information about Westfield. And, we were talking about it, and I said, because my best friend and I were making plans that we were coming back to visit. So we were coming back to visit to see if we could see the taps again. And I said, his name's Seth, and we were talking about it. And so when we came back and on our way up to Barcelona, we had stopped at a couple smaller cemeteries. And the very first one we stopped at, I walked in, and it was a family cemetery, and there were so many. I walked in and I saw Seth as the first name on all of these stones. So when I saw my friend again, I said, right after we talked about this, I said, the first one we stopped at, and I said, there were so many Seths. And I said, didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to creep you out, but he was like, no, that's awesome.
Yeah. So.
Is your arm okay?
Yeah, you gotta remember, it's age.
Oh.
Now, I'm not old.
No.
I'm just older.
Yeah.
Now, don't ever forget the der.
Exactly.
People don't get old. They get older.
They get wise.
It's like when I've interviewed people, one of the questions commonly, just to check out their education level, I'll ask you, is there any such thing as cold?
Well, it's relative. It depends.
Well, no. It's a yes or no question.
Well, yeah, there is cold, but it also is relative in my experience.
Actually,
and I can tell you why.
Okay, go ahead, and then I'm going to shoot you.
Okay, that's okay. So, yes, there is cold, but if you put me in a certain temperature, say, 50 degrees or whatever, to me, that's pleasant, that's beautiful. Now, my brother and my dad have both undergone radiation for different things, and to them, 70 degrees is cold. Okay, so that's what I mean by it being relative. Now you tell me.
Okay, there is no such thing as cold.
Okay.
You ever heard of absolute zero?
Yes.
It's like minus 470 some degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
Allegedly, it's where molecular motion ceases to move.
Okay,
So in essence, the electron's not even rotating.
It's not moving,
okay?
Yep. Okay.
So you have absolute zero.
Yes.
Everything above that is heat.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, you can use the term, it's colder today than it was yesterday.
Okay.
I'm colder sitting in the living room than I am in the kitchen.
Okay.
But you can't use cold.
Okay, I like that.
And this is where I get into things, you know, that you have fun with. You know, it's things that you spit out at a bar.
Yeah.
When you're there with your friends, you know,
Yep.
stuff like that.
I love it.
That little bit of jocularity going back and forth.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I interview people, I throw stuff like that into the interview.
You should. I love it.
I mean, one of the questions is what happens when you add an equal amount of acid and a base together.
Okay.
And I remember one manager's looking at me like, and he was a chemist.
Okay.
He knew the answer.
Right.
Okay. And I could read his mind. Why are you asking that question?
Sure.
And the guy didn't know.
Okay.
And I said, that's fine.
Yeah.
If you don't know, you don't know. And I'm good with that. It's an honest answer.
Yeah.
And I said, perhaps you'd like to explain it to him,
Yeah.
being the chemist.
Yep.
And he goes, well, when you add equal amounts of an acid and a base, you get water and salt.
Okay.
The salt can be different kinds of salt.
Sure.
You get water and salt. And I'm kind of like, and? What do you mean? And what? You get water, some kind of salt, and I don't know what. A certain amount of heat. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like, and, you know, later he goes, why did you ask that? And I'm kind of like, I just wanted to know what other things you knew.
Sure.
It tells me about your education level. It tells me about how you think and how you respond if you don't know.
Yep.
You know, things
absolutely.
like that. Like I said, I had to interview and hire my own boss.
Yeah.
And when he got hired, he told the general manager, ask Wayne, ask him if I could have his list of questions. It is the most intense interview I've ever had.
Yeah.
And I explained to him, there was no questions. My mind started at one point in the plant, and I just kept walking in my mind.
Yep.
And
wow.
I would ask you a question. I said, there was no pad in front of me, you know, no nothing.
Yep.
So
from experience.
So you get into that. You get into the maple and such. I know that they're trying to find ways, because at the end of the year they make some maple that's called Buddy.
Okay.
It doesn't have a good taste.
What is that the name of like the brand or something?
No, they just say that syrup's Buddy. In other words, the buds on the tree have started to open up. The tree has started to what's called metabolize.
Okay, I got it. Okay.
And the sap changes.
Really interesting.
And now you got chemists out there trying to come up with something that they can add to the maple syrup to make that flavor acceptable.
These
or
chemical
go away.
engineers.
And
always trying to modify something, aren't they?
And the thing is where I had to bury my parents all those years ago, there isn't a maple tree to be found. It's all pines.
Really? Wow. So the ground's acidic. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So, well, let me ask you this. So, with the syrup that comes from Westfield, so do people react? Do you ever have the reaction like that I had to it? Like when people find out where it's tapped, do they ask? Like, do people ask like where it's tapped, or does it not matter?
It probably doesn't matter, But I will say that my syrup will taste different from your syrup, which will taste different from his and hers.
Okay.
Because
is it kind of like grapes, where it's just like the climate and the soil content? The
soil.
Nutrients? Yeah. Okay.
I really think that that's the key. A leaf makes chlorophyll, makes sugar.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. It doesn't care whether it's here 10 miles away.
Right.
As long as it gets carbon dioxide and sunlight, it's happy.
Right.
But you have so many different soil types. I can taste the syrup made on the Lake Erie shoreline.
Really?
And taste the syrup that's made 7 miles away. And there is a little bit of difference.
I would believe there is. So you're a connoisseur.
So, well,
I'd say so.
I don't know about that. Can't even say that I really know what the word means. But you know, if you're paying attention, you can taste just something's a little bit different. And I know that I've had people over the years say, well, yours is different from Joe's or Mary's, you know, and kind of like, well, I don't know what to say, because I'm in like 4 different climates.
Right, okay.
I have the lakefront, I have the escarpment, I have the side of the hill, and I have the top of the hill.
Okay.
And a lot of people, they look in one tank and they got sap.
Right.
They know what to do. Well, considering that I got like 4 different climates all within 10 or 12 miles, I have to go look.
Right, okay.
I've had years where the Lake Plains saved my butt.
Right, okay.
And I've had years where the top of the hill saved my butt.
Sure, okay.
And the seasons where I just get annihilated they're rare. I had a guy come to me one time. He offered to haul sap for me.
Okay.
This was back when I was 3,300 taps.
Okay, wow, that's crazy.
And he made a comment about, so how much and how much sap, what do you think, hours, all this, okay? So he's kind of like, okay, I'll work for you. A few days later, I got the biggest run I'd ever had in my life, 9,000 gallons.
Oh my gosh.
And he's starting to cuss at me. Exactly 7 days later,
yeah,
I had my biggest run I ever had. I had 10,000 gallons.
Oh my goodness.
The 10th and the 17th. And believe it or not, on the 24th, I had one that hit 10,500.
Oh my goodness.
And he simply goes, I will work and finish out this year, and I will never work for you again.
It was too much. Oh my goodness, it's amazing.
So
let me ask you this. So your 9-day season that you had at Westfield, so was there any, speaking of like different notes and different like qualities of the syrup, was that 9-day run like, was there anything like better about the 9-day run, or was like the syrup, did it meet your standards? Was it you usually get in terms of taste, or?
It met the standards. It was all good stuff. Actually, there was very, very little change from day one to day last.
Okay.
The color was all a medium color, because it's, in the old days it was called light, medium, and dark. Now it's called something else.
Okay.
But everybody still understands light, medium, and dark.
Yeah.
It was all a nice medium. I don't even try to make light syrup anymore.
Okay.
Could I? No, I don't know. But when I first came to Westfield, everybody wants first run light. And I would tell them the first run's not always light.
Right, yeah.
I've seen it black and get blacker.
Get out.
And, but a lot of people coming in with, I want first run light. And I would tell them, shop with your tongue. Shop with your tongue, not with your eyes.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
Well, it seemed to all come to a head. There was a older gentleman here in the village. Every year we would buy 7 gallons, and he used to be a candy maker.
Really?
And every year he wanted first run light. And every year I would take him down the lightest I had.
Sure.
And he was happy. one year I took it down, and believe it or not, he brought it all back the next day. He goes, those 6 have never been opened. This one's been opened,
Right.
and it's missing about a half a cup.
Oh my.
And I'm kind of like, so what was the problem? He goes, there's no flavor. And I said, you wanted color. You didn't want flavor.
Okay.
You got what you asked for.
Right.
And he goes, well, will you take it back? And I said, yeah, I'll take it back. I trusted the guy.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
And like I said, he was older. He was weaker. I got him a stool.
Yeah.
He sat down, and I was boiling at that time.
Yeah.
And I pulled some off on the next batch, and I let it cool a little bit, and I handed it to him in a little cup. And
Taste
he
this.
tasted it, and he goes, that's what I'm talking about. I want 7 gallons of this.
Yeah.
So as it came off the filter press, he got his 7 gallons.
Oh wow.
And he sat right there. Believe it or not, it was grade A dark.
Yep. See, shop with
And
your tongue, not with your eyes.
It was almost like all of a sudden that word got around town. I only have one person every year now that asks for the light.
Really
Everybody else, they
took your advice.
I'll take what you got.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it was an education,
Sure.
educating the consumer,
Absolutely.
and the word spread. So
Wow.
now there's certain things like when you're making the sugar candies and such. Oh, don't call it candy, because if you call it candy, then I got to charge sales tax. Maple sugar is a food.
Oh.
Maple sugar candy is a candy, and now by state law you have to charge sales tax.
That's insane.
So you make sure that your box only says maple sugar.
Wow.
The C word is a bad word
The C word is a bad word.
in more ways than one.
Yes.
But
Oh my gosh.
a simple term like that, all of a sudden it becomes a candy, and you got to charge sales tax.
Isn't that interesting?
No,
Wow.
actually, it's stupid.
Well, yeah, it is stupid. New York State has a lot of those stupid things.
But that's the maple, pretty much the maple industry. There's a lot more people that are getting into it now.
Yeah.
Call them the backyarders.
Sure. Kind of like craft beer. Everybody's kind of like doing it. You know, like they're all brewing their own beers and.
Well, my wife is a licensed distiller.
Get out.
If you want 15 gallons of 193, I've got it at
Oh
home.
my goodness.
So,
It's a one-stop shop. I love it.
yeah. Well, years ago, I always dabbled,
Yeah.
okay? And she was so afraid that she would have to come up on the hill with large handfuls of cash to get me out. And I would tell her, my customers are all sheriff's deputies
Yeah.
or county mounties or corrections officers.
Yeah.
If anything, I have protection,
Yes.
okay? Well, she wanted to go legit. So it took almost 2 years, but I made her put it in her name.
Okay.
And, okay, now it became minority owned. It became
Women owned. Yep.
Right on down the line. But the most important thing
Yeah.
is now if anybody goes to jail, it's her.
Oh my goodness, Wayne. You're too much.
So,
Well, let me ask you this. Did you guys ever think about making like a maple flavored like craft beer? Did you guys ever discuss anything like that? Or
that's been done before, just
Has
like
it?
just like maple wine.
or like a maple whiskey or
Yeah.
well, that's been done, I'm sure. But,
Yeah.
but not your own.
No, and it can be quite the process.
So not in the foreseeable future.
I will say no.
Okay.
I do know that
Because we'd keep our eyes out for it.
another guy here in the county, he makes syrup, puts it into used bourbon barrels,
Oh,
and
interesting.
it does pick up the bourbon
Sure.
flavor.
Yeah. I can
And
see that.
actually, he'll be in this park here in another month. I don't do the market things anymore, or the craft shows.
Oh, okay, I see.
I don't have time anymore.
Yeah, sure.
But every year I'll be down to buy 1 or 2 of his,
Sure.
because it's a nice flavor And I don't put it on anything. I'll just take a
Teaspoon?
spoonful here and there.
Yeah.
And
Medicine.
but I've had some of their experimental maple beers. I'm not a beer drinker anymore.
Okay.
Don't like it.
Yeah.
It's like where I worked one year was a grape plant. I worked there like 15 years. And for their summer picnic, they had a guy make some grape beer.
Okay.
You know what?
Interesting.
Every time they filled one of those red plastic cups,
Yeah. Oh God.
I'll swear they went to the back side of the building and dumped it out on the ground.
Oh yeah. I'm not a huge beer drinker, but there are some beers that are just that I've tried that are just absolutely terrible. And a lot of them have fruit, or like the fruit flavored beer. I don't know. I can't. I don't. It's not for me.
I know there's certain things that just don't make.
That just don't make good sense. Yeah, like, but I figure everybody tries something once. So I'm just taking a look here. So what I am going to ask you is, so you do sell it on the market, so you sell it wholesale. And you said we sell
retail.
Oh, you do sell retail.
I got out of wholesale.
Okay.
Number one, I keep my prices lower.
Sure.
But it's the same price that everybody pays. It makes this bookkeeper lady, wife, a lot happier.
Oh yeah.
And with all of the improvements I've made in the building.
Yeah.
Like if you straight boil maple sap in the evaporator, by industry, you'll blow 4 gallons of oil for each gallon of syrup.
Right, okay.
Pretty much with a concentrator, you can drop that 4 gallons down to maybe over a gallon.
Yeah, okay. Economical.
So, right there, I can lop easily $5 a gallon off of the price.
Wow.
And I'm still got a better profit margin than the next guy.
Oh my goodness, how cool is that?
And then there was a unit that I put on the evaporator that they told me it would increase my efficiencies like 40% at 165 degrees.
Yeah.
And they came down and they set it up. I was one of 6.
Wow.
It was a research project.
Oh my gosh.
And they called me up. They watched the weather. How's it working? Exactly what you said, 40%, 165.
Yeah.
Called me up after the second run, 40%, 165. But let me ask you a couple of questions. Oh God, don't tell us you are a tinkerer.
Oh gosh.
You are one of 6. We need raw, accurate data.
Yeah.
Please don't do anything, blah, blah, blah. He calls me up when we think we have the next run, and I tell him, no, that'll be tomorrow. Calls me up tomorrow. And he goes, well, is it running? How did he say that? Oh, is it running as good as it was?
Yeah.
And I said, no. And, oh God, you're the tinkerer.
Oh geez.
How bad did you reckon?
Yeah.
And I said, well, you're 40% at 165. I am now running 75% at 198.
Oh my goodness.
He called BS on that. He goes, physics. He goes, you can't do that. I said, okay. It was incredible. They were here 9 hours later.
Wow.
And the unit still sits at my place.
Oh my gosh, how cool is that?
And there was changes I made.
Yeah.
Not really anything major, just 4 or 5 little things that added up to there's that old math thing. Sum is equal to the total is equal to the sum of the parts.
Yep.
And
experience. It comes from experience of just, practical, everyday, like in the field. hands-on experience, and you can't learn those things.
No,
It comes from doing, you know,
and
it's the doing.
That sucker's still there.
That's amazing. So, do you have a brand name for your syrup, like when you sell it?
Just Harrington.
Just Wayne syrup.
Harrington Maple.
What is it?
Harrington Maple.
Harrington. Oh, I love that. So it's named after the family. I love
Actually, that's who named it that way. I forget. Oh, it was Ag and Markets. They got a hold of me on another thing, and they asked about it.
that. Okay.
And he goes, well, what do you sell your maple under? Because every once in a while, they will come in unannounced
Okay.
and just buy some,
Oh, wow.
just like you would.
Yeah.
And then they take it back to the lab.
Oh, wow.
They check it for bricks and density
Okay.
and color. But one of the biggest things is they check it for lead.
Wow.
And there's certain standards.
Oh, sure.
And they'll come in and do that. You don't even know it.
Yep.
And then you'll get a report in the mail
Oh, wow.
saying this is basically your lead level and such. You're good to go, or you have a developing problem. You know,
Oh my gosh.
we've always been good to go,
Yeah, of course. But that's so cool that it's third-party testing, and it's like,
and you don't know.
yeah, that's even
So
better.
You didn't get to cheat.
Right, exactly. Wow.
So yeah, there's that kind of thing going on.
Are there any stores or diners that serve your product?
Yeah,
Really?
but I couldn't tell you.
You're not sure which...
No. My wife would take care of that. You got to remember,
Okay.
she's a salesperson.
Yeah.
I am only the general laborer.
Okay. She's in charge.
Actually, when somebody comes and she's not there, I have to look at the price list.
I love it. Oh my gosh. That she just takes, she's the operations manager.
Oh, I don't know if she
And the
wants to be,
salesperson.
but to me, it's
Well, I love that.
seat of the pants.
That's right.
With her, she likes to put every nickel on the books, which makes my CPA not very happy.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, that's the hard part, you know, and so it sounds like you have the fun part. Well, it sounds like something you wouldn't do unless you had a love for it. And very cool that, like, you did it with your dad, and it's something you can, like, you've passed on to your children. I think that's beautiful.
I would like to go smaller. Okay. 1,500 taps.
Yeah.
It's a lot for my age.
Yeah.
And then you throw in that when my equipment is all running,
Yeah.
legally you don't need ear protection,
Okay.
but it's darn close.
It's, wow.
And even though I have a TV in there, I can crank it all the way up.
And you still
You
can't
can
hear it.
hear it outside of the building, but you can't hear it inside the
Oh my
building.
goodness. You gotta put the
Because-
captions on.
Because I've got an evaporator running.
Yeah.
The noise of boiling sap.
Yeah.
The noise of the blower on the oil burner.
Sure.
The concentrator with 3 running motors over there in the corner.
Yeah.
A filter press running. And you get up into the other room, there's 2 or 3 pumps that might be running at the same time.
Oh my gosh, what an operation.
I remember back when we used to have the house tied to the street, and then we tied the building into the house panel for electricity.
Okay.
And I'm out there running along one night, and all of a sudden everything's dark.
Oh no.
But the house is lit. And everything came to a stop.
Wow.
So, you know, you reset everything, you go in, you turn the breaker back on, and with the background I have, I throw an amp probe on the thing. I'm pulling more power out there than my house with electric heat pulls.
Oh my goodness.
So needless to say, we had to watch it for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And then the local electric company came up, said you need to put in a second service and we'll give you a bigger transformer.
Oh my goodness.
And we'll charge you more money, of
Well,
course.
Of course,
but,
yeah.
But, you know, little things like that that you have to handle on the way up through.
Yeah, sure, and it's a learning curve, you know, also, like, you don't know until you try, and you don't know until everything goes dark.
And as they say, you learn from your mistakes.
Absolutely you do. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share, like, with the people who are listening to the audience? Is there anything else you'd like to say, like, in regards to maple syrup or your experience or the cemetery or...
don't burn your pan.
Okay.
You'll never get it clean.
Well, that's good advice.
So, holy cow, here comes something.
Oh, wow. Here comes something.
Yeah. Look at that. He's taking up 2 lanes.
Oh, yeah. Wow, really, that is. All right, well.
But, yeah, just, and if you got some sugar, actually you can use a number of different trees.
Okay.
Believe it or not, you can even get syrup off a black walnut tree.
Shut up. I have some in my backyard.
Don't be afraid to try something. The biggest thing is never walk away from your pan when you have the heat.
Okay.
Because you risk burning your
it.
pan.
Okay.
And if you burn your pan, you're done.
That's it, huh?
Okay, you're looking at a new pan.
Okay.
But don't be afraid to try it. I mean, like if you have if you're gonna you got maple trees in your yard.
Yeah.
And you're gonna boil it down on kitchen stove.
Yeah.
Remember, it's 43-1.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
You're gonna boil a long time.
Yep.
Put it in a 5-gallon bucket. Put it in your freezer.
Okay.
The water freezes. The sugar doesn't. The sugar will go to the core of the bucket.
Yeah, and the water just...
And all of the ice will be around the outside of the bucket.
Oh my goodness.
Turn it upside down in a pan.
Yeah.
That'll hold what's there. Shake it a little bit so that ice comes out of that bucket.
Yep.
And then normally you just hit it with your hand or maybe a small hammer or something like that. Because the bottom of that ice plug will be soft.
Oh, wow.
Drain the sugar out of there. That's Mother Nature's reverse osmosis.
That is so cool.
And once again, when you
don't
got it
burn
on the stove, don't walk away from it.
Okay.
Okay. Syrup happens when the temperature of boiling water, let's say, is 212.
Yes.
Syrup happens at 219.
Okay. Wow.
But you always need to. I have to on my big equipment.
Yeah.
I have to boil a pan of water before I get started.
To bring it up to temperature?
Because of air pressure.
Oh.
It might only be boiling at 211.6.
Right, okay.
And then I have to set my equipment to 218.6.
Oh, you have to adjust for the degree. Okay.
Yep.
Fluctuation. Wow.
And if you have a weather front coming through,
yeah,
it can change by a whole degree.
Really?
Just within 15 minutes.
Okay, yeah. So I knew like pressure did that, like altitude, but I didn't know that like barometric pressure also.
Barometric pressure will do that too.
Interesting.
So, yeah, you can do it on your kitchen stove as long as you've done a little bit of research.
Okay.
And you understand that things can change.
Wow, okay. Well, maybe I'll be calling you next year for advice on how to tap my black walnut trees in my backyard.
Well,
Or maybe I'll be calling you to taste my syrup.
I've got a 23 cubic foot freezer that failed on us.
Oh my God.
Chest freezer. New Year's Day.
Oh no.
Now I had other freezers.
Yeah.
And being that I do refrigeration work, it took me $8 to fix it.
Oh, geez.
But she wanted to have an upright now instead of a chest.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I've got a lady that bought that old chest. She hasn't picked it up yet. Because what's she going to do next year? She's going to put like 8 or 10 5-gallon buckets of sap in there and let them freeze.
Oh my gosh, what a great
and that's
idea.
the only reason she's buying it.
Wow. That is so cool. Well, Wayne, I just really want to thank you for your time and all of your sharing your experience, being willing to share it with me and with the listeners. And thanks for taking the time. This was awesome. I mean, I hope you enjoyed yourself, but this was pretty awesome. And my colleagues are going to go crazy when they hear the story.
Well, let's put it this way. I had much harder work in mind for this afternoon.
Well, I hope this was more enjoyable than the hard work.
As the farmer says, there's always tomorrow. There's always next year. So
yeah.
And next year it'll be what it'll be.
It is what it is.
It could be another lousy season. It could be a fabulous, incredible season.
Right. Well, I hope you get longer than 9 days,
Well, yeah, I hope we get longer
Jeez.
than 9 days. So.
All right, well, I think I'm going to, we'll sign off.
Okay.
And, hold on, let me see here. Pause this. Okay. And, Wayne, this was awesome. And